of entrepreneurial training and mentoring and the empowerment of Indigenous businesses. We have an interesting workshop today. We have a lot of ground to cover, and hopefully there will be some information and some insight that will be useful to you in growing your business or creating your new business. Before we get started, again, I would like to read an acknowledgement, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge with respect the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, whose land this program is based, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanik peoples, whose historical relationship continues on with the land to this day. We thank you all for attending virtually from different traditional territories you reside. And again, we have people from all over BC. We have people from Nunavut. We have people from the interior, Fort McMurray. So it's a really great crowd. And thank you very much for joining. It's really exciting and heartwarming to be able to deliver these kind of workshops to you. The workshops or the webinars are funded by the Songhees Nation, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, the Songhees Innovation Center, and with support from Vancity. Before we get started, there's something that I would like for each of you to do, and that's, we have one moderated. It's nothing like starting off a workshop and getting a message that said, good morning or good evening, sunshine. Well, good evening to you too. There's something that I would like to talk to each one of you about, and this is, we'd really like to get to know you. I mean, this is a very large group and it's a very diverse group, and we want to make sure that the information that we present and the webinars that we're presenting and the kind of content that we're packing in there is related to your type of business and your interests. So what I would really appreciate is let us get to know you a little bit. If you can send an email to vithriving@gmail.com sometime in the next few days and let me know what business you're in now, if you're already in an existing business, or if there's some sort of business or opportunity that you're interested in, because we would like to make sure that we focus the attention and the content, whether it's tourism or technology or retail or service sector. We'd like to make sure when we talk about those kind of opportunities that they cover some of your core interests. That's actually quite important. I would also remind you that mentoring is one of the components of these workshops. And if any of you would like some one-on-one time with one of our mentors, we have a great team of mentors, cover just about every sector. We can arrange that. And again, that's just a matter of contacting us at the vithriving@gmail.com. So today we are going to start with where ideas come from. But before I do that, I would like to clarify something, because I've had a few comments back on two of the things that we talked about in our last workshop. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on an avatar, because my eyes are darting all over the place here, and I'd rather you look at, let's see, who? Oh, the others are gone. Okay. Well, there. That's the avatar. In the corner underneath the avatar there, on the far right, there's something called Dock. If you click on that, it'll move the avatar over to the right-hand side and get away from the main screen. So two of the things that I'd like to talk to you about that we covered in our last webinar workshop, there was one of the slides that I presented, and it said, don't dwell on the past. And somebody said, well, does that include the cultural and past and the past of the community? And no, it doesn't. And I'll explain exactly what I was talking about. Because the cultural perspective, the Indigenous perspective, that's part of your strength. That's your core strength. And we'll be discussing that at great length in upcoming webinars when we talk about specific business opportunities or the best Indigenous business opportunities. when I said don't dwell on the past, I was talking strictly from a business perspective. And when I talk about baggage, when I talk about, for example, bad clients, if you've had bad clients or bad relationships in some time in your past, learn from those types of clients and learn to avoid them. If you've had any bad business deals, if you've had a greedy partner, and there are lots of those around, learn to be careful. Ground truth any opportunities that you may have had. If you've tried to go into business or you've been in business and you've made yourself sick working like a dog, and that's quite common. People really throw themselves into their businesses. Don't do it again. Take better care of yourself. If you've had a bad boss, and we've all gone through bad bosses, make sure you don't copy them. And you can use my example. I talked to you about the fact that I had this consulting practice with 35 employees. Well, one of the reasons I went into entrepreneurship is I had a boss who I had continual fights with. And it was the kind of thing that inspired me to go out on my own. And I swore at that time I would never treat my employees the same way as I got treated at that company. When I sold the company, I made sure that everybody on our staff, and we had 35 people on board, they all got paid out. They were all young, aggressive, real yuppies at the time. They paid off their student loans. They bought cars. All of them bought, if they bought cars, it was never like a Fiat or a Volkswagen. It was always a Mustang or some Honda. But I was really glad to do it. And it inspired me to make sure that I did not follow in their footsteps. Okay, so when you've had a bad experience, learn from the past, but don't dwell on it. Another example, another prime example of that is I once had a joint venture in Russia, in St. Petersburg, Russia, and it was to produce lithium cell batteries and button batteries for different appliances and also some titanium. And it was an experience. I'll tell you the entire story one day. It was quite an experience. I'm really glad to get out of there alive. But, I had a staff of 4 people and I had an office and our contracts were done. And I didn't want to renew them because it was a really dangerous place to do business. So I had these people and they were like family to me. They really were. And so they said, well, what are we going to do now? And I got to know them and their wives and their husbands and their kids. And I said, here, it's really simple. You are going to remain employed for 6 months. For the next 6 months, I have no work for you, but for the next 6 months, what you're going to do is look for a job. And there were a lot of Western companies that were setting up in Russia. And I said, write yourself a great letter of recommendation. I will sign it, say all sorts of wonderful things about you. But your only role is to find a job. And they said, yeah, but you're paying us. I said, well, come in, use the computers, use the office, but you have no work for me. Your one role is to go and find a job. And they were kind of blown away. But, each and every one of them found a pretty good job. And I'm actually doing some work with a couple of them still to this day. So that's learning from your past. And that was really inspired by the fact that this one employer I had, and it was one of the owners, and quite frankly, he crapped on me, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. And so I swore I would never do that. So when I talk about don't dwell on the past, that's what I'm talking about. Not from a cultural perspective, not from an indigenous perspective, because those are part of your strengths. Those are your core values. I'm talking about from a business perspective. So I hope that point is clear. The other one that I want to mention is I mentioned motherhood. And a few of you said, well, what is motherhood? Is this a comment against family? And no, motherhood is it's a business term, and it means something very vague. And you hear politicians use it all the time when they talk about stuff like, well, our country must contribute to world peace. Well, what does that mean? These are statements that nobody can disagree with, but they don't mean anything. We believe in a cleaner environment. Well, what does that mean? What are you doing about it? How are you contributing to a cleaner environment? Or you see companies in their business plans, they say, well, we want to be the best at what we do. Well, geez, what exactly does that mean? And what happens is the people who are reading these plans really get annoyed by these kind of motherhood statements because they're very quick off the cuff and they don't carry any value to them. You know, you'll see another one is, we love our family. We love our employees. They are family. Well, what does that mean? If you said that you have a profit sharing plan or that you're grooming some of the employees to become co-owners or partners, that's an okay thing to say. But just to say, you know, we're a wonderful family. We want to be the best in the world. We want to own the market. I had one company that was working on an internet site, and they said they wanted to put Google out of business. Oh, that was great. And as I showed them out the door, because I mean, it was a ludicrous thing to say. And that's motherhood, and people really get annoyed with motherhood. So when I use a term like motherhood, it means don't speak in generalities, speak in very specifics. Now, I see there's a number of people who have just joined us, which is great. Welcome aboard. And I want to show this to you because it's, I'm okay, don't worry about it. I want to show this to you because it's quite important. We want to get to know you. This is particular for the ones who have joined us in the last 5-10 minutes. If there's a business that you're in now, or there's a business that you are interested in starting or exploring, let us know, because we want to make sure that some of the workshops from here on in, when we talk about types of opportunities and marketing and communications, we want to make sure it's focused on what your interests are. So if you can drop us an email, a very short email, just a couple of sentences, let us know what your interests are all about, and we'll make sure that the content is geared towards what most of your business interests are. Okay? Once again, in terms of housekeeping, I encourage you to chat away. Let us know. Give me questions. I will try and field as many questions as I can as I go through here. Yeah, let me know. Give me input. Everything is welcome. If you have something great to say, that's fine. If you have something not so great to say, keep it to yourself. I don't need to know. I'm a very sensitive individual. I'm Mr. Nice Guy, but I'm a really sensitive individual. Just kidding. But don't be shy to chat and get back to me with questions, with areas that you want me to cover as we're going through this. Okay? Great. So let's get started. We're going to start today with where ideas come from. And where do ideas come from? They come from everywhere and anywhere. You know, you talk about hobbies, and a lot of people convert their hobbies to businesses. It could be baking, it could be woodworking, it could be anything. It could be photography, it could be computer skills or developing apps. It could be just about anything. I mean, I get a lot of my ideas, my inspirations happen to come from something that I call pizza dreams. If I have something to eat very late, something like heavy pizza, I'll be tossing and turning, and a lot of times I'll be up during the night, and that's where some of my ideas have developed. But everybody has their own areas that these business ideas pop up. So let's have a look at where some of these ideas come from. Certainly from hobbies. And this is a biggie. You know, if there's something that you're doing as a hobby, it could be, for example, that you're very health conscious. So it could be a cookbook. It could be becoming a personal trainer. It could be anything like that. So developing a hobby into a business is a really good thing because it's something that you're familiar with and something that you're comfortable with. Travel is another one. You may be in different countries. You may... Hang on. Can you repeat what you said about emailing you something? Stacy. Okay. Stacy, here you go. I'll repeat this one more time. Hang on. And it's here. Let us get to know you. Tell us what business you're in now or any business that you're interested in starting, and drop us an email at vithriving@gmail.com because we want to make sure that the direction and the content of some of the next series of webinars, because there are another dozen or more webinars in this series, contain information and advice for the type of business that you're in. And that's what we had said, okay? theithriving@gmail.com. Good, okay. The other area is advertising. And a lot of people see an ad and they say, yeah, we can do that. Or I see the product and it could be interesting. It's something that I've looked at, but I think I can make it a little different or a little better. And she can't see or hear anything. Is there something she could do? She tried leaving and rejoining. I don't know, Lillian. I would say there has to be something on your PC or laptop that says unmute. She can't see or hear anything. I would suggest that you just rejoin. Just rejoin, and that's all I can suggest at this point in time. Okay, news and media. Stuff that people see in the news, and it inspires them, because that's what the idea is. The idea is an inspiration. You're looking for an inspiration somewhere. Changing demographics. As you know, the demographics are getting older. The baby boomers are getting older. They're not booming anymore, but they're looking to stay young. So there's an awful lot of products that appeal directly to baby boomers that help them meet their needs of trying to stay young. And that's appealing to changing demographics. And I'm going to show you something here. And this is a product that I brought out. And again, it's directly related to changing demographics. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Hang on. Let me call it up. It's one of my favorites. Here we go. I won't play it all, but
the greatest variety of marine phytoplankton communities with the richest nutrients are grown here on the pristine southwest seashore of Canada. These marine unicellular organisms are critical to life on Earth and the secret of long life. Selton contains all 9 amino acids that the body cannot make. Essential fatty acids are also present in Selton, including omega-3 and omega-6, as well as vitamins A, B1, B2, 3, 5, 6, 12, C, D, and major trace minerals.
so there you have it. And there's absolutely nothing subtle about that product. Baby Boomer Reboot. It was designed to appeal to a certain demographics, and that's exactly what we appeal to. With the name, with the video, with the sales presentation. The product was sold on Amazon for a long time. It was sold at GNC and some other health food distributors in the States, and it did really well. And it cost a lot of money. But again, we knew we were dealing with a sector that was reasonably well-to-do, and they wanted to recapture their youth. That's what the logo is all about. That's what the whole packaging was all about. I have a question here. Are there major regulatory hurdles before you make health claims about a product? Yes, there are. What we did in this case is all we did is repackaged an existing product that already had marine phytoplankton in it. and it was certified. So we really just ran on their coattail. We didn't change the formulation. We didn't change the capsules. We didn't change anything except the rebranding. That having been said, if you're dealing with nutraceuticals, you can't say it heals anything. You can say it helps with the symptoms of a cold or a flu or dry skin, or you can't say it'll make you feel great. You can say there's a very good chance that this will increase your appetite, will increase your energy level. So you can make claims indirectly that way. Yeah, but does it open the garage door? Anyways, so that's the way you can do it. As a matter of fact, I had this one client, and he was in Kelowna base, and he had a pill, and he's been making it for years and years and years, and it was called heart pills. Heart pills. And his rallying cry was, "This will cure anything that's wrong with your heart." And I would say to him, "You can't say that. Somebody's going to complain. Somebody's going to shut you down. Somebody will shut you down." And sure enough, they had somebody complain because his commercials basically said, "Take one of these pills, put it under your tongue, and anything that's wrong with your heart, it'll cure it." It's like snake oil. And somebody did shut him down. They sued him, and the government came and shut him down. So you can't do stuff like that. But you have to be very careful. And I see this a lot in craft markets where people have aromatherapies or nutraceutical products with herbs, and they say this will cure so-and-so, and this will cure acne. And I advise them they can't say stuff like that. So the other thing is, and we talked about this the other day, is copycat. Find something that's out there and copy it and ride their coattails. You know, if something's very popular, if you make the same thing, give it a different name. And you see copycats all the time. When something comes up, and if it's a product, could be a consumer product, could be a toy. You see it in the toy market, you see in the cosmetics market all the time. And just copycat, and it works. You can do that because somebody is already paid to do their advertising, and you're just riding on their back. Variation of an existing business, and that might mean new product or seeing something's out there and you say, "I can do that, I can make it better," which is cool. Give it a try. Could be you can come up with better baking, better coffee, better web design, better anything. I mean, anything that's out there. If you think you can do something as well or better than anything that's already out there, that's great because you're riding on somebody's coattail. Somebody's already done their homework. Web research, and this is part of market research. And you may be cruising the website looking for the top car wash companies or the top service companies or the top computer training companies. And you see how they operate, and you see how they charge and how the services they offer, and you see if what you're doing can fit community needs. And that's definitely what we're seeing right now with the COVID-19. There's people out there who need landscaping, who need shrubbery work, who, they're spending more time at home. They need delivery they need pickup of products. They need disposal of stuff that they're cleaning out their garage or their basements. So there's lots of these community needs. Trade shows. I know a lot of people who go to trade shows. It could be the car show, could be the technology show, it could be the Aboriginal business show, and it's the same as fairs. So they go to these and they scour the markets, and a lot of the new products that you see coming out on the shelf. There's somebody who's gone over to a market over in Asia, or the UK or somewhere else, EU, and they found a product that someone was selling, and they pick up the line. So, and this includes stuff like franchising. I mean, if you pick up a franchising magazine, you'll see thousands of franchises, and there's some great ideas in there. You don't have to buy a franchise. I would suggest you don't buy a franchise, but you can ask them for a franchise kit, and they'll tell you all about their business. Sounding boards. really great if you have some ideas and you want to bounce them off somebody and say, I've been thinking of doing so and so. What do you think? And sounding boards are great. Don't use family and friends, as I've mentioned before, and I will mention again. Very dangerous, only because they will either agree with you or they'll tear you to shreds. So you're not really getting an honest opinion. Find somebody who is an advisor. Could be an accountant, although I'm not big on accountants. Could be a mentor, and use one of the mentors we have in our team who focus on tourism or technology or whatever your product is, and use them as a sounding board. And the last one, of course, is timely opportunities. And we see that, and we talked about it yesterday, and we're going to talk about it again when we talk about different opportunities for the present. And really, COVID-19, you're reacting for instant gratification to something that is required right now. And you see a lot of this in earthquakes. Whenever there's an earthquake or a tsunami, you see emergency kits, first aid kits, and they're all over the place. And after a couple of months, people forget, and so you move on to the next opportunity. And health foods. Whenever there's a trend, it could be Weight Watchers, it could be the keto diet, it could be the Atkins diet. You see a lot of products come out to fill that need. And I remember one, for example, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was years ago, and they said oat brands would clean out your arteries, and they were great, and it was one of the healthiest things around, and you should just eat oat bran every day. And you couldn't even buy oat bran. I remember we went to a health food store, and the guy, we said, "Do you have any oat bran?" He said, "Ooh, just a minute." And he went into the back and he brought us an unmarked box of oat bran. It was like buying drugs, And he said, "Here, I think I have one left." And he charged us an absolute fortune. And then after about 3-4 months, another study came out and said, oat bran, nothing great about it. It's another fad. But for a period of time, it was a very significant business opportunity. And this is something else in terms of business opportunities. You have to recognize what's this? Oh, signed in. Okay. Oh, I'm glad, Lillian. I'm glad that you're with us now. So it's very much a creative process. It really is. And when we say a process, it really is a process. And it starts with an inspiration. Something happened. Something triggered you from the different areas that we talked about to consider a business opportunity. So now you have an idea. And what are you going to do with it? You can't just say, "Oh, I was thinking of producing, rum-flavored oat bran," and because it appeals to a couple of different markets, and do it. There's a lot of work that goes into it. You have to research, you have to vision, and we're going to talk about specifically how the process works. And we're going to be looking at a business from start to finish, exactly how a business process works, going from an idea up to the time that it's a business launched. And it's not all that different than the kids' lemonade stand. It's more complex in terms of going through a lot more stages, but it covers a very traditional process, and I'll show you step by step. So maybe you can give me some ideas of what kind of business you would like to see started. Like if I was going to say, give me an idea for a business, and I'll see if I can follow through with it. And hopefully it's something that interests you. So send me some chats of stuff, whether it's a retail operation or a clothing store or even a coffee shop, anything like that. So business ideas come from everywhere. It could be geographic. It could be from prior employment, teaming with inventors. There's lots of inventors out there, hobbies, social encounters, sitting at a party and somebody says, "Oh, I had a good idea. Why don't we whatever?" Some ideas work and some don't. You have to do your homework, and we'll talk about how that gets done. I had one client come to me, and he and his friends, and it had to be some sort of drunken frat party. I don't know what it was, but they came out with an invention called a snow bike. So picture racing down the hill on Mount Washington or wherever, and you're on a bike, and your front wheel has a ski on either side, and your back wheel is skis, and you have brakes, but your brakes don't really work because you're trying to slow down in ice and heavy snow. But they invented this snow bike, and they actually, without doing any research, and they didn't do any product testing, they had a few designed and produced in China. And they came to me with this idea, and I said, do you have like $100 million of liability insurance? So when the first person flips and breaks his neck, you're going to be stuck with this bill. And it went nowhere. And they were selling it for like $2,000. And it was just horrible. It was one of the stupidest things I'd ever seen, a snow bike. So obtaining rights, okay, we're getting some ideas, selling wheatgrass, dog houses for dogs, people of low income. Interesting, okay. Oh, we do have one, somebody's interested in coffee shop. Didn't they have those in the movie Help with the snow bikes? Really? I don't know. Online clothing, also very good. So obtaining rights, and that's part of franchising. And you have to be very careful with franchises because some of them are pretty cool. Some of them, they're asking for a lot of money, but they don't give you a lot of support. So you have to research with other franchisors and see franchisees and see what they have done, what kind of support they've gotten from head office, what head office charges. You know, they charge a percentage of sales or a percentage of bottom line or whatever. And you have to be very careful with franchises because there's lots of them. I mean, the ones you know about are a fortune. So you have to basically, unless you're loaded, you have to find something that's of interest to you, something that you can do, and find out everything about them. Customer request, you may be employed somewhere and somebody keeps coming in and asking you if you have a widget. And you say, no, I don't know where to get it. I don't know. But tell me about it. And maybe you go into widget manufacturing. An invitation from another entrepreneur to join them, or a deliberate search of the internet. And this goes on more and more. And I often try and remember whatever happened to life before we had Mr. Google, because we just search the heck, and you can search just about anything and find interesting experiences or interesting opportunities. And of course, there is the aha moment, which is one of my favorites, where the lights come on. And so if we're looking at different business opportunities, so where do you think the number one source of business opportunities comes from for the average entrepreneur? Can you tell me? And then I'll show you my next slide. Okay, I'm waiting. Oh, there's two other people who are interested in a coffee and a pastry shop. Good. Family. Lex, your family, I'm not sure, but maybe. Could be. Mother, same as family. No, my mother always wanted me to be an accountant or a dentist or something that could guarantee that she would have a comfortable. So where do you think opportunities come from? And I'll wait 10 more seconds to see if anybody can spot the number one source of developing a business opportunity. And this is documented. I'm not making up. Networking, a really good one. Something you see on TV and on the web, decide you can make it from our ideas. Trends, yeah, trends could be. Where do you get most of your business ideas? Are you ready? Friends, yeah. From your own mind, true. Customer requests, good. Government, lots of good sources, but those are great sources for generating business ideas. Heavy drinking, yeah, that'll inspire it. I think that's where the snow bikes came from. Okay, here it is. The number one place where entrepreneurs get their ideas. That is the number one source, believe it or not. It's the best place to think and it's been documented. I'm not sure how they did the study. It must have been a really interesting study. But Jennifer, if you can't hear me, please unmute your PC or your laptop. Yeah, but that's it. I mean, people have these thoughts when they're sitting on the potty, and this is where ideas come from. Or the shower. Actually, that's where I've developed most of my ideas was, in the shower, and it gives you time to think. And hang on, when I want to go to the bathroom, hurry up so we can have a break. Oh, you guys are crazy today. Okay, so I'm going to run a video here that has the 15 everyday inventions that were created by accident, because that's another way that opportunities get developed or come to light. And this is by accident. Okay, you ready? And I find it's really interesting, and I hope you will too.
Even though from wallpaper cleaner turned into a children's toy to laughing gas that nobody knew could stop you from feeling pain, we kept 15 innovative creations created by the craziest of accidents. Number 15. Potato chips, an invention that only became reality when a chef in upstate New York called George Plum had a customer continually send back his plate of fried potatoes, claiming they weren't satisfactory. George got so fed up that he thinly sliced the potatoes and deep fried them until they were crispy, simply to spite the customer. But in a bizarre twist, the customer loved the potato chips and asked for more. After that, potato chips suddenly became a huge thing in the snack industry, simply because the chef was pissed off at this annoying customer. Number 14. Cornflakes. 1984. The Kellogg brothers ran a hospital and health spa in Michigan in which they advised clients to abstain from meat, alcohol, tobacco, and a whole matter of things deemed unhealthy at the time. They substituted caffeine in coffee with granola, and one day when cooking some wheat, they were called away only to come back and find the wheat stale, but they still put it through the rollers. Out came this wheat berry flattened into thin flakes, paving the way for the cereal we know today as cornflakes. Later, the company would shy away from the healthy breakfast lineup to focus on outdoing the sugar-filled competition with honeycomb and waffle crisp cornflake flavors. Number 13. Play-Doh. It was originally a wallpaper cleaner, a successful one at that, but after people stopped using coal to heat their homes in the mid-20th century, wallpaper stayed clean. The owner of the company quickly thought up an alternative to their product with help from his sister-in-law to market it as modeling clay for children. They took out the detergent ingredient, added a pleasant scent and a variety of colors, and Play-Doh became what we know today. Number 12. Chocolate chip cookies. 1930. A woman was baking a chocolate dessert when she realized she'd run out of traditional chocolate. To substitute, she dumped in Nestle chocolate chips. To her shock, the chocolate chips didn't melt into the cookie, but stayed relatively solid. Her initial disappointment gave way a few years later when Nestle offered her a deal to use her company name in a line of the world's first chocolate chip cookies known as semi-sweet chocolate morsels. The recipe went on to become a staple in restaurants and kitchens across the globe. Number 11. Velcro. 1950s. A Swiss man named George de Mestral walking through the countryside, annoyed those little sticky plants known as cockleburs were all over his clothes. He got home and took out a microscope, only to find these things actually had microscopic hooks which latched onto the fabric of his clothes. He then took this information and devised a material that might be used to keep things easily stuck together without adhesive or tightness. Hence the idea of Velcro was born. Number 10. X-rays. In the era of developing knowledge on invisible rays such as radio waves and radiation, one physicist discovered that when he pumped electricity through a special light bulb tube, a chemical a few feet away would glow. He realized that the tube was sending out visible rays that could penetrate paper, wood, and even skin. He called them X-rays, the X meaning unknown. The first X-ray image was of the bone in his wife's hand, and upon viewing this image, she cried out, "I have seen my own death." Number 9. Penicillin. Before this discovery in the age of antibiotics, common illnesses were rampant and lethal. the average life expectancy was hardly above the age of 50. In 1928, Alexander Fleming left town for a while and came back to find his petri dishes were full of mold and contamination. One container drew his eye though. Although it was covered in bacteria, in one area was a blob of mold. Around the mold, an area free of bacteria, as if the mold were blocking it from approaching. The contents of this petri dish could be used to kill a huge amount of bacteria, hence the discovery of penicillin. Number 8. Plastic. If it weren't for two accidents, it's possible we would be using clay and eggs mixed with animal blood as a water bottle. But Charles Goodyear of Goodyear Tires combined rubber and sulfur and accidentally placed it on a stove, where it merged to form a strong and durable material we know today as plastic. Whereas in an unrelated incident, in a contest to find a replacement for elephant ivory and billiard balls, John Wesley Hyatt spilled a bottle of collodion where it dried up to form plastic. By the year 1872, his creation became the first commercially successful plastic. Number 7. Superglue. A researcher at Kodak called Harry Coover experimenting with plastic lenses for gun sights when he stumbled on an extra sticky adhesive made from synthetic materials. He thought nothing of it at the time, but almost 10 years later, one of his assistants rediscovered it while accidentally sticking a couple of prisms together. Harry realized the market potential, so he decided to take it further and commercialize it. The title, Superglue. Number 6. Anesthesia. We're all thankful for this one, the so-called laughing gas used to inhibit pain during surgery. It was in the 1800s that inhaling the gas was more of a social event referred to as a laughing party or either frolic. In 1844, Horace Wells saw a man with an injured leg while under the influence of the laughing gas, to which the man claimed he didn't feel any pain. Following this, Horace used the gas to help him remove a tooth, to which he and some colleagues realized they could use it in the wider field of dentistry. Over the years, it took off and became a staple of the medical industry. Number 5. Tea, a very old recipe from thousands of years ago, which, if legend would have us believe, saw a Chinese emperor named Shennong boiling his drinking water in a cauldron. One windy day, some leaves from a nearby tea bush blew into the water without his knowledge and turned it a light brown. Most would tip out the water and start again, but since Shennong understood herbalism, he decided to risk a taste, only to discover it actually tasted kind of nice, and thus tea became a thing. Number 4. Matches. For tens of thousands of years, starting a fire has always been a chore. But in 1826, John Walker discovered a curious recipe for a strikeable 3-inch long match. He was stirring a pot of chemicals when a dried lump formed at the end of his mixing stick, and when he tried to scrape it off, it ignited. He sold miniature versions of these at his local bookstore, but because he hadn't patented the idea, someone else came along to steal it. Eventually, these friction sticks became the safety matches we know today. Number 3. Viagra. 2 researchers at a pharmacy were experimenting with a new drug they hoped would treat high blood pressure and heart disease, and in the late 1980s they moved on to human trials. Although the drug wasn't effective, the side effects led them down an entirely different industry. Most of the test subjects reported they got massive erections that wouldn't go away. A new clinical trial was conducted, this time with the aim to treat erectile dysfunction, and in 1998, Viagra was finally approved by the US Food and Drug Administration. Number 2. The ice cream cone. This is a widely accepted mystery. During the late 1800s, street vendors couldn't decide on what container they should use for ice cream, whether it be paper, glass, or metal. In 1902, 2 people filed patent for edible bowls for their ice cream, but it was in 1904 at the World's Fair that ice cream quickly sold out. The waffle stands weren't doing so good, so the people that sold the ice cream combined with the waffle stands to increase sales, wrapping up waffles and putting ice cream on top. After the fair, hundreds of people all applied for the patent all at once, and nobody truly knows who was the first one. Number 1. Microwave oven. Percy Spencer, an engineer at Raytheon, was doing radar research with a vacuum tube when he noticed something melting in his pocket. His candy bar seemed to be cooking where he stood, so Percy decided to test this notion of invisible ways cooking food by throwing in some popcorn kernels. Every one of them popped. The idea was miniaturized and placed in pretty much every kitchen around the world. That's it for this countdown. Now,
So there you have it. Inventions created out of accidents. And that happens quite a bit. It's just the way things work. You just don't know where these ideas come from. But the idea here is to take this concept and analyze it. And we're going to show you how you do that. How you take this idea and say, does it work? Does it not work? And it goes down a pathway. There's this process. And the process is actually called, you're funneling an idea. So picture you take this giant funnel and you throw all this information into it, all sorts of stuff. And coming out the bottom are the key pieces of information that will either give you a decision to go ahead or to hold back on a project. And that's what you're trying to do. The first thing you're trying to do is get all this information so you can arrive at a yes, no decision as to whether this thing makes sense. Okay? And that's the funneling process. And just picture a giant funnel where you just dump all this stuff into it, all this brain dump information. And who is it here? Somebody said, wait till I go to the bathroom, hurry up so we can have a break. So when we do have a biological break in about 10 minutes time, I want everybody to go do their thing. I don't need any of the details. And come back with some great ideas, because you got like 10 minutes to develop a business idea. Just kidding. But it happens to be a fact. So people say a man's success in business today turns upon his power of getting people to believe he has something they want. Can anybody give me examples of that? It's convincing people that they need something that he or she can develop and produce. No? AR5. What's AR5? Sorry, I don't know what AR5 is. Oh, art. Yeah. Art is one. You've got to convince people that art is Formula 51. Mm-hmm. Art is key, and you have to sell people on the fact that it is different. Find out what people want and develop it. That's part of market research. But let's look at some examples of what is out there every day that we didn't even know we needed. We didn't even know we needed any of this stuff. And a perfect example, probably the best example of all, is Apple. Nobody ever needed an iPad. Nobody ever needed a Nano music player. And it was Apple that convinced us that we needed all this stuff. Everything from the Nano to the iPad to the Mac Air to the expensive Mac computers to the huge screens. I mean the Apple TV. All this stuff they developed, and they convinced us we needed them. So that's an example. Another one is Tesla. We never had an electric car, not really an electric car, but Tesla convinced us that it was something great to have. And let's look on an even smaller scale. When you see advertising of a new laundry soap, well, that's right, an electric car. What was the matter with the old laundry soap? Like, everything is new, improved, faster, bigger, stronger, and they sell us to make sure that we understand that we need this, and it's part of a sales job, and it's part of the marketing that you will have. A couple of webinars just dealing with marketing and marketing baking soda for your fridge. Nobody ever. I mean, this was an application, and you see it everywhere, and you see it in fashion. I mean, who says you need new clothes every year, different style, different cuts, different colors? You go from pastels to the very brights of the 70s, the stuff where you had to wear sunglasses to look at some of these clothes. And I think back in some of the fashions that I had, stuff like the Nehru suits. I used to go to these Nehru suits were made out of polyester. So if you sweated, everything stayed inside you, and they were buttoned up because the Indian fashion was buttoned up like this. And everybody would be sitting at this meeting in Nehru suits and just dying out. But the interesting thing is it kept the meetings really short because nobody wanted to sit there for very long. But you see it. What else do we have? Food additives. Oh, yeah, Clark Griswold. Yeah. Well, there's a perfect example. An acrylic coating to keep cereal crisp that was then used on his toboggan. Yeah, that's true. And these are all things we didn't know we needed. And the one that I look at and that just floors me all the time is I don't know if it's Neutrogena or Dove. I think it's Neutrogena. And they said, your skin can be as soft as mine. Look how beautiful my skin is. It's gorgeous. But the models they're using are what, 16, 17 years old. They've never seen a wrinkle in their life. But everybody aspires to be this beautiful model with the best skin in the world. So, I mean, this is convincing people that they need these products. And that's part of getting ideas to market, is the power of getting people to believe he has something that they want or something that they need. Any questions? Anybody got any other examples? Clark Griswold, Food Additives. I love it. It was one of my favorite movies. Beer. Well, Ruski Brewski. I mean, does the world really need another beer? But it was convincing people that it had a story behind it. And even when you talk about art, because I've had a number of art clients, and I know Lex, who you're going to be hearing from in a couple of workshops from now, and when he talks about marketing, I did work for the Inuit Co-op back east, and they were doing these stone carvings, and this was their main source of income. And they would make, a couple of $100 a carving, and some of the studios or art dealers would take it on consignment, and maybe they got paid, and maybe they didn't. And what I worked to develop for them was the story. Tell me about your art. It's not just the art. Tell me about the artist. Tell me what it means. What were you trying to do? And the story behind the artwork was as important to the customer as the piece of artwork. And we helped them form the cooperative, and they started selling these art pieces, these stone pieces, for, instead of hundreds of dollars, for thousands of dollars, and developed a profile for some of the old-time artists where their work was even more valuable. So that was convincing people that there was something that they needed and they wanted. It wasn't just a piece of art. It was art with a story, with a history, what it represented, whether it represented the spirits of the ocean, whatever it was. The artwork became much more valuable than what the artists were used to. So that's another example. So, Apple, Tesla, laundry soap, cosmetics, anti-aging, fashion, you name it. So whatever you are thinking of developing in terms of a business, think about how you can sell it to somebody. Do they need it or do they want it? And there is a difference. For example, in today's market, when somebody is buying a car, everybody's approaching the car dealers and they're saying, well, I'm thinking of buying a car, but I don't need it. I want it. And it's driving the car dealers crazy because all of a sudden they realize that they have to be very receptive to the fact that people are ambiguous about buying a car. They're looking at these cars because they have nothing better to do. Here it is. I do native art fashion, and I can be surprised sometimes. One lady really likes my stuff and keeps coming back. Well, she probably likes you and the stories you tell and what your art represents. And that's what keeps her coming back as well. So that's a really good one. It was Tattoo who needed to die before people found this art valuable. Was it Tutu? I know it was Van Gogh who died before his art was valuable. The only person who bought any of his art, by the way, was his brother. His brother bought one piece of art, but now look at what his paintings are worth. So the other lesson here is, and I can't emphasize this enough, be proactive. And that means don't sit back and wait for stuff to happen. You have to get out there, and it has to be your attitude. You can't be reactive. You can't be reactive. You have to be proactive. And that means taking the initiative, doing the research, doing the testing, constantly updating your ideas. And being proactive is really critical. I used to have, and I've seen this a number of times, where somebody goes into business and the first thing they do is they lease an office. And then they buy all sorts of toys, whether it's computers or fancy phones or, fancy cars. They lease cars and they sit in their office and they wait for something to happen. And it doesn't work that way. You have to get out there. You have to be pounding the pavement. Really quite important. And then there's something called the aha moment. And the aha moment is when you realize that you have an idea worth exploring. So if we have an aha moment, it should be a happier avatar. Let me see if I can find it. I didn't set up too many avatars here. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. No. I'll have to go back to, here's a happy avatar. Anyways, the aha moment is your moment of discovery, your realization. You recognize that you have something, but you may not know how great it is until you've done the research. And it's the light bulb moment. You have an instant awareness that maybe I've got something here, and I should be exploring it a lot more. So that's your aha moment. And I have to tell you, from an entrepreneurial point of view, there is nothing like the aha moment. It is an experience in itself. So here you see the process, and it shows, you have the idea, and you're scoping out the idea, then you build the business case, develop it, testing, validation, and launch. I mean, that's in simplest terms. That's how the process works. But there is nothing like discovering that you have something that you are anxious and inspired to pursue. And I have to tell you, it is one of the most marvelous feelings in the world. It really is. So what I'd like to do now is take a 10-minute break. We will get back together at 7:10, no later. Hopefully some of you, if you go to the washroom, you will have some terrific new ideas to share with the group. But I'm gonna take you through one business from start to finish, from coming up with the idea to what it takes to get a business up and running. Up and running meaning to get to the yes/no decision. Yes, I'm going to proceed, or no, I'm going to walk away and start working on something else. So 10 minutes, 7:10, and I will see you back then. Thanks.
All right, well, the internet has helped plenty of people find a job. Meanwhile, lots of others are taking their
Okay, I hope everybody is back. Everybody developed a whole bunch of great business ideas while they were out doing their thing. No? Want to tell me about what transpired? No? Well, keep it to yourself. That's okay. Maybe in the mentoring sessions, you can tell me about all the great business ideas you've developed in the washroom. So we talk about think, plan, act. That makes sense. So you have to think about the consequences of acting. Like, what are the risks? What are the elements that are going to cost you money, take your time, put risk in terms of maybe your current job or your family, or is this a worthwhile opportunity? And that's what analyzing a business opportunity is all about. But what you also have to think about is the consequences of not acting. And I can't tell you how many times it's happened where I had an idea and I didn't act for out of one reason or another. I was distracted. There was another shiny coin on the road, and it bugged me for the longest time that I didn't at least follow through to see if the idea made sense. So it's not only the consequences of acting, it's the consequences of not acting. And one of the examples I wanted to tell you before, and I forgot, when we talked about developing a business based on your interest or based on your hobby, one of the things I've always enjoyed is outdoor activities, fishing, boating, hiking, etc. When I sold my business, my consulting business, I was bored. And I was kind of too young to retire. So I wanted to spend more time outdoors. And what I did was I combined two things. I combined my interest and my hobby with a business opportunity. And one of the businesses I developed was called Trophy Takers, the great outdoors Canadian adventure company. And what I was doing is I was booking these very high-end trips up into northern Canada, northern BC, for primarily the American audience, British, French, and German. And these were trips primarily for, there was no hunting involved, but there was fishing trips and caving and all sorts of adventures. And the beauty of it is I had to explore all these various lodges and resorts up there. So I would get free trips to come and explore these resorts so I could report on them, so I can include them possibly include them in our itinerary of products. And it was really cool. So I got all these great outdoors adventure trips and developed the business at the same time. So there you go. So that's how you can tie in your hobbies and your interests. So we are going to there. I think I mentioned this one before. I have a new interest. I have a new address. I'm living outside my comfort zone. Entrepreneurship takes you out of your comfort zone. Entrepreneurship takes you out of your comfort zone. There's no question about it. If you're not in business, or if you've never been in business, there's a lot of things about business that you'll find risky. You may not understand how to go about developing a new business, and that's what part of this program is all about. Or if you've developed a business and you started it and you don't know where to take it to the next stage. Again, that's part and parcel of what we're covering in this program. But you're definitely going to go outside your comfort zone. The better prepared you are, the more you know on how to do this kind of stuff, the better you'll be in terms of being comfortable living in your new comfort zone. So there's different types of businesses. And these are, in terms of small business, you can see all sorts of various opportunities, including service sector, arts, manufacturing, administration, healthcare, real estate, retail, professional, and even in construction, something like construction. Not too long ago, I did a presentation for the Vancouver Island Construction Association. And one of the things they were desperate for was Indigenous contractors to work on some of their big projects, because in a lot of cases, their projects, they had to have a certain percentage in terms of Indigenous input, whether it's employees and subcontractors. And they were desperate to link up with Indigenous contractors to work with them on some of these major construction projects, roadwork construction. So, I mean, the opportunities are there. You just have to learn to find them and develop them. And sometimes opportunities are really weird. And some of the stories that I've experienced in my years in consulting, there's one I always like to share, and it has to deal with tiger testicles. There was this guy who came to see me in my office, and he had a box with him. I was actually a cooler. And he said he had spent years in Africa, and he discovered a new aphrodisiac, which he was going to export to China. Of course, a country with 1.4 billion people, they really need another aphrodisiac to build a population base. Anyways, he talked about it, and I finally said, well, what is it? What's it all about? And he took out these frozen whatever they were tiger testicles. And he said, what I'm looking to do is ground tiger testicles. And I basically said to him, I said, I feel really bad for the tigers. I don't feel really bad for you, but the tigers can't be really happy giving this stuff up. So I'm not taking your project. It's nothing I really want to work with. But he was dead serious. This was his passion. This was the opportunity that he had developed and the opportunity that he wanted to pursue. So you just never know. What I want to show you is a video from some leading business people. These are names that you'll recognize, but they talk about small business and what it takes to be in small business and to be successful. So I think it's worth a watch. It's not that long, and then we'll start working through our test case. So, whoops. Ooh, where is it? Ooh, hang on. That's not it. Give me a second here. see if I can find it.
Best advice to a small business owner, or for that matter, to a large business owner, is never stop thinking about how to delight your customer. Not to satisfy your customer, but to delight your customer. When you wake up in the morning, you're thinking
Oh, it's not going to work.
at night, and then no company
Okay.
that had millions delighted.
Hang on.
You start with the one is when it starts out with you, and great if it comes into a wonderful big profitable company. So
Hang
you're
on.
happy, more satisfied than you are in the first year you go in your business. So you do everything single. You sleep up and go home. You're the first one in. You're going to so
Work it off.
you can get straight to work. Work through lunch. That makes it hard. But this does keep hard work. People say, "What? Yes, with hard work."
My advice to a small business owner or any entrepreneur would be not to be discouraged. The business you end up with is not the one you started out to pursue, because so often you encounter difficulties, you encounter failures, and the important piece is to learn from those very quickly and pivot and to move on from
Hey, hang on. I'll get this worked out.
Think about that. That's the most important. Don't think of to think about your business, what you're carrying on, what you want to do next, how to do this to the next level. Again, think about in your business, but think about your business as well.
My business is to really work on and clarify a lot of your businesses and be able to articulate, be able to communicate in simple sentences.
Sorry about
As you go behind your company, I think the most important question you have is are you in and you hear what this about, you hear that your passion around that business, specific qualities, and any skill that we learned and taught with passion,
Being able to in
I get,
time,
well, here.
they
Sound is barrel. I know. I'm trying to
you may
undo it.
have an awful day. You've got to stay focused and stay level and keep your feet on the ground. Companies
On the way.
on some level, you know, they're wide and producing something special. So I think
Go away. Thank you.
it was 8 years ago.
My,
I never really
my something coming back from
turning into a short. It was not it was truly remarkable. Male, female, fat, American, whatever
take a 5-minute break while this thing plays, and then we'll pick up again.
their enemies to better themselves. And
Wow. Okay. We're still here. Okay. Is that better? So, where are we? Technology. Hello. Sorry. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Is that better? Wow, that was fun. Okay. Is that any better? Still an echo. Wow, I don't think I can. Yeah. Okay. So where's this echo coming from? Is that any better? Okay. Yeah, hang on. We're gonna try this. Can anybody hear me now? Can you hear me now? And you can hear me now? Yeah, okay. And that's a better sound? Okay. I'll figure out what that was all about. I don't know. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at a coffee shop. And somebody is interested in setting up a coffee shop. And there may be some very good reasons to set up a coffee shop, but they're not sure about it. So they have to do some research, and they have to find out if this thing actually makes sense. Doesn't make sense, and they have to ask themselves, excuse me, do I like this fast-paced environment? Do I like the service industry? Is this something they're comfortable with? Am I good at multitasking? Do I get flustered very easily? Do I enjoy satisfying customers? There's a lot of people who want to go in business, but they may not be comfortable dealing directly with people. I had a very good friend of mine who, and I think I mentioned this before, he became a medical doctor, but he hated dealing with patients. He hated dealing with people, so he became a radiologist. And all he did all day was read X-rays and comment on people's conditions. And that's what he did. So he didn't have. So you can accommodate in terms of what you're looking to do, the type of business. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about probably in the next session is something called self-assessment. Figure out, are you an entrepreneur? And what kind of an entrepreneur are you? And there's a number of questions you'll ask yourself, because a lot of how you choose the business is based on what kind of personality you have, and what you enjoy doing and what you're good at. So assessing if you are an entrepreneur material. So let's look at the next slide. So here's somebody who wants to open up a coffee shop. Is the sound okay? Can you kind of hear me now? Yes, I hope so. Yes? Yes, okay. Okay, so the first thing you have to determine is what kind of coffee shop do you want. Do you want it as a full-service coffee shop, or a fast food type coffee shop? Do you want it where people gather and spend time, and it almost becomes like a club? And that's one of the things that Starbucks originally started, where people were there, but they hung out. And you'll see that the new Starbucks, for example, are almost like fast foods. They don't encourage you to stay. Okay. And then what kind of coffee shop do you want? Do you want a full retail coffee shop, or do you want the coffee to go? A fast food truck that can go to various events. And hang on, if I can plug this in again. See if this is, if it's clear. Is that it? No, it's got the end. Oh well, take that off. Okay, so you have to determine to what level you want to build this coffee shop business. And then you start doing research. And the research is canvas for coffee chains. And there's lots of information that you can get in terms of where do people buy their coffee? Is it McDonald's, Second Cup, Starbucks? McDonald's, I mean, they went into the coffee business because they wanted traffic. They don't make any money on their coffee, but they want people in there so they could, it's almost like a loss leader, so they can encourage people to buy the other products that they have, you know, the burgers and muffins and everything else, all sorts of stuff that they've tried. But you look at who your competition is, and you can check out each one of these competitions. And a lot of these are hard to understand. It's going in and out. Well, okay. Okay, give me another minute. Let me see if I can. Well. No, that's not it. That's not it. There's something else playing in the background here. Hang on. Is that any better? Because I think I was duplicating the sound system. We were running two systems at the same time. Is that any better? Somebody can report. Yes, better, fixed. All right. Technology. God, I hate technology. Anyways, so McDonald's started serving coffee as a loss leader because they wanted to capture business away from everybody else. But every one of these businesses, you can get their corporate reports. You can get all sorts of information, statistics, who is buying coffee, how much they're charging, if it's a growing industry, and you can see who your competition is. But these are your competitions on a big scale. So these are competitions on a big scale, so you can see who's there and how they're operating. So that's your first stage of competition research. Then you check the pricing. Now again, this is somebody who is looking to set up a coffee shop, but they don't know if it's something that they really want to do. They don't know if they can afford it. They don't know if they can make money at it. And it's really critical that they do their homework. This is all part of the homework. So there's all sorts of reports and statistics, whether it be a report on the coffee shop industry, whether it's a pricing report or statistics that are gathered, but it shows you the prices of coffee over a period of time. So you can see how stable or unstable a product is. And if you remember, for a while, coffee got super, super expensive. And then you look at the market share of hot beverages in Canada. And you see instant coffee, roast coffee, tea, and hot beverages. And you see that roast and ground coffee accounts for 24%. So it's not the biggest market out there, and these are old statistics because I'm just using this as an example. If you look at this as a trend over time, you will see that it's likely a growing market because coffee has become more than just coffee. It's become a social function. And additional research, you can get the market share of coffee in Canada, distribution in Canada. And this is all research that you can get on Google. It's all readily available. Sometimes you have to buy reports, or you go to the various associations. There are associations for just about everything out there. Or you contact some of the coffee companies, and they'll supply this information to you because you're looking at setting up a coffee shop. You look at traditional hot brewed coffee, specialty coffee, and iced specialty coffee. So traditional coffee would be your Timmy Ho's and your McDonald's. Your hot specialty coffee, which is a much higher margin and higher price point and higher profit margins, but it's a lower piece of the entire coffee puzzle. So you have to ask yourself, which kind of coffee do you want to produce? What's your store going to sell? You know, and this is all part of trying to decide what kind of coffee shop you want to set up, and if you are going to set it up. Now, remember, you haven't arrived at any kind of decision yet. You are still gathering information. Remember, I talked to you about the funnel? Well, this is all part of the funnel. You are feeding this information into the funnel so you can decide whether it looks like something that you want to set up. Then you look at the different types of coffee and the chemical composition, because that's also important in terms of how you're servicing your client base. So are you going to go with more exotic blends, or are you going to go with something much more standard? This is all part of the research. Then you look at your coffee competition. And if you take this as, and this is right in Victoria, you've got to look at all the coffee shops you have. I mean, Union Pacific, which is a beautiful little coffee shop in Chinatown. You've got Murchie's. And these are all, forget these because these are too far away. But look at the cluster of coffee shops and coffee bars you have. So what you want to do is you want to go to these places and you want to check them out. What I would recommend to somebody who is looking to set up a coffee shop, and it could be any type of business, but in this case it's a coffee shop, is go and spend time at these various locations. Look at the traffic. Look at the type of person who comes in. Look at what they buy. Are they buying coffee, or are they buying coffee plus some munchies that go along? Sandwiches? Is it partly a restaurant? How much time are they spending there? Are they taking up space and not buying anything? You know, are they just like students who come in? And this is one of the things that Starbucks was facing, is they would have these university kids come in and buy a coffee and sit there all day long. So they were taking up very valuable space. They would be sitting there doing their homework, doing their research, and they were all sitting there with their laptops. Most of the laptops were Mac laptops, and just sitting there working like it was a library. So it was really upsetting the regular clients who wanted to come in, meet, have a business meeting, and get out. And that's one of the reasons that Starbucks has made their locations a lot more uncomfortable. Nobody really wants to hang around for a long time. But you go to the various locations, and in this case, we're talking about coffee shops, and spend time and see who's coming in and out and see what the traffic is and see the kind of clientele. And of course, to be realistic, you can look at franchises. Starbucks isn't a franchise. It's almost all company owned. But go to some of the majors and see the kind of people that are attracting in, and see what you have to do to try to steal some business away. Because every market you go into, unless you are going into a product or a service that doesn't exist, you're creating something new. If you are going into something like a coffee shop, it's a finite amount of business. The coffee market in Victoria, for example, is X million dollars or X cups of coffee. If you are going to set up shop, you are going to be stealing business away from somebody else. So you have to see which sector of business that you're looking to attract and where you're going to get them from, and what it's going to take to attract them to your coffee bar. And look at your competition. Look at the the reviews for some of your competitors and look at the decor. I mean, this is very expensive decor, but I don't know who this. I think this is Union Pacific. But I mean, they're serving meals and they're serving all sorts of Tex-Mex in California and organic snacks, and so this is a very high-end coffee shop. But if that's what you're looking to do, if that's your dream business, then you have to go spend time with your competitors. And you can find out everything about them. You can go onto their websites. You can see what they serve. You can see their menus. You can see who is going to be close by. You can look at locations. Obviously, location is a big deal because, as you saw on the slide, so many of them are clustered so close together. The other thing in terms of competition, and Lex will be talking to you more about this in terms of market research, if you go to a coffee shop out of town, you can go into some of these places and speak to the owners, because entrepreneurs, quite frankly, are very lonely people. They're very lonely people. So they like to talk and they will share. And if they see that you are not a competitor, they will open up to you. So really, when you go into these places, either call them or go visit. Like if you're setting up in downtown Victoria, but you can head out to anywhere else in Victoria or Up Island or even in Vancouver and spend some time with some potential competitors. I mean, they won't be direct competitors because they're far away from your market. And imagine you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to sit and talk to them and ask them anything you want to know. And so you go in very prepared with your questions, and you sit and you ask them, and you always flatter them first. You tell them what a wonderful website they have. You tell them what a beautiful spot they have, beautiful location. They're a real role model, blah, blah, blah. You've checked them out for the longest time. Whether it's true or not, you always want to flatter them first. And then you ask them your questions, and they will generally share. They will generally share. They're not going to show you their financial statements, but they'll tell you which lines are more profitable and which lines are easiest in terms of stable prices, stable supply, customer appeal, etc. And then you look at the brand. And in some cases, if it's a franchise and it's something like Timmy Ho or McDonald's or 7-Eleven or Blends, they spend a lot of time developing their brand. Here you have Union Pacific Coffee, which is a beautiful location, but their brand is very laid back, very upscale. It's not just a coffee shop, it's a heritage coffee shop. And this is all part of building the brand, building the image of what kind of business you're looking to establish and what kind of coffee shop. Because obviously there's all sorts. There's everything from street food coffee shop to something as beautiful as Union Pacific. So you have to determine, and part of that will be to determine what you can afford as well. Then you look at coffee shop marketing, and this information is available either online, or from associations that cater to coffee shops and restaurants and industries. But you look at this and you say, the physical location is number one. It's the most important thing. Word of mouth is something also very important, but it takes a while to get there. People have to start talking about you. But your location in this industry is the most important thing. And that's why when you looked at the original map of competitors, everybody was clustered around a specific location. Downtown, you had the offices, you had the retail trade, you had traffic, you had close to the waterfront, you had the government buildings. So obviously that was the number one location. So location is really, really key. And that's obviously one of the deciding factors. you can see it's even more important than the coffee itself. Location is pretty critical. And then you start looking at the numbers and numbers crunching. And what's in a $3 cup of coffee? Okay, so you have your coffee beans or 35, and this information is available. This is all part of the research, all part of the market research that you can draw. Like if I was able to do this, anybody is able to do this. Really, this was put together, all this basic information was put together in less than a week. And within a week, I had all the information I needed as to whether I wanted to go ahead with a coffee shop or not. So the coffee beans represent 35 cents on a $3 cup of coffee, so that's like 10%. The milk, cup and lid. Labor is the most expensive thing in any business of this kind. You can see the product itself is marginal, and it's 45 cents profit on a $3 cup of coffee. So then you say, well, how many cups of coffee do I have to sell to pay the rent and pay my staff and make a profit as well? And then you look at some of the higher end drinks, and this is on the latte, and you can see that the profit margins are much higher. There's a $2.23 markup on a latte because a lot of it is steamed milk and etc. But and this is out of Seattle, and you know if the information is coming from Seattle, it's going to be solid because it's one of the coffee capitals of North America. I mean, it's the birthplace of Starbucks and so many others. So you look at the higher end and you see, do I want to offer a lot of higher end drinks, or do I want to sell plain coffee and just do higher volumes? So part of coffee research here, they're looking at a gross profit per cup of $2.50 on a cup of coffee, which is extreme. So you have to look at this information and you have to take the highs and lows. And here they're looking at this one particular operation. The total cost of ingredients is $1. Average selling price is $3.50. Gross profit per cup is $2.50, which probably is a lot more realistic than some of the earlier financial numbers crunching. So you have to look at all this information and see which ones you can believe. And when you speak to some of the coffee shop owners, they will fill you in on which ones make more sense. So at this point in time, you're still gathering information. Then you can actually buy reports or look at different websites that give you information on how to budget for when opening a coffee shop. Okay, so it covers space, it covers equipment and the cost of equipment, supplies, advertising, payroll, taxes, and cash flow. So now you're getting into the nitty-gritty of opening a coffee shop. You have determined what level of coffee shop you want, how fancy it's going to be, who your clientele is going to be, what your target market, what your target client base is going to be, where you're going to be stealing business from, because you are going to be stealing business from an existing coffee shop, and how you're going to do it and what you're going to be offering that may be a little different. Is everybody following me so far? Yes? Yes, good. Thank you. Okay. So what does it cost to run a coffee shop? And there's all sorts of reports. And, you know, here's Bellissimo Coffee Info Group. And it's such a huge industry that they can actually produce this kind of reports. That it costs $200,000 to open a small coffee shop. A cart is about $20,000. It's much easier to open a coffee shop and succeed with $300,000, obviously, but it's not impossible. So you're looking at anywhere between $20,000 for a small cart that appeals to the walk-by traffic, up to $200,000 to $300,000 for. But this won't give you a Union Pacific. Union Pacific is probably somewhere in probably $1 million, $1.5 million. And it all depends how fancy you want to get. And then there's all sorts of reports on coffee shop startup costs versus coffee shop franchises, coffee carts, coffee kiosks at a mall. Do you remember a mall? I haven't been to a mall in so long, I can't even remember what a mall looks like anymore. But anyways, a coffee kiosk, drive-through coffee shop, sit-down coffee shop between $200,000 and $375,000. Seattle's Best Coffee, $265,000. It's probably a little more expensive now. So here's some franchises, and some of these franchise costs will include equipment, but they'll certainly include branding. Like as soon as you open up a Seattle's Best with their logo, with their brand, everybody recognizes it. So it's instant brand recognition, which is really important for bringing customers in. Whereas if you have a coffee kiosk or a coffee cart, you're starting from scratch. And you can see the difference in money in terms of getting one going. So here you have a budget, and these are also available either online or through reports. Revenues, and here this shows revenues of about $300,000, operations of about $250,000, net revenues of about $50,000. So this would be your break even. So this is your budget. This is what you're hoping for, but the actual, as you can see, is pretty well break even. 240 in, 240 out, nothing left at the end of the day. And that's not good. That's not good, because you have to go into a business where you have enough of a margin to carry you through in slow times and put some money in your pocket. And you will hear from some of the funders, because we have funders coming next week to talk to you guys, that they will tell you that when you're producing a budget or a pro forma for them to look at with your business plan, you better have something in there for yourself. Because if you say, well, I'm not going to take any money from the business for the first 6 months, they'll say you'll never last. You just won't last because it's not being realistic. Okay. Tips to improve coffee shop revenue. So you say, okay, I want to make sure that I have higher margin products out there that I'm providing. So the first thing you do is you eliminate your low margin stuff. Unless it's a lost leader, but most of the time you just eliminate it. You have prepaid gift card, and what this does is it develops a loyalty program. Same with discount coupons, control waste and theft in a coffee shop. I don't know how much theft there would be, but certainly wastage, because these are employees. It's your business. It's not theirs. So evaluate the hours of operation. Make sure you're not going to be open longer than you need to. And a lot of this is really part of the research you're going to do in going around and visiting your competitors out there. If they're only open until 3 in the afternoon, there is a reason. Find out why. Okay. Eliminate bottlenecks in the order process. People hate waiting in line. They just hate waiting in line. So there's nothing good enough about your coffee that they would wait forever, except something like Starbucks. But then it becomes a place to hang out and talk to people and meet your friends in line. But otherwise, if somebody comes into your shop or your kiosk and there's a ton of people waiting, they'll walk away. They'll look for something else. Run employee sales contests, and really that means taking all your employees and turning them into salespeople. Make sure that every one of them can upsell. You know, when you go into a coffee shop, they always say, well, would you like a sandwich? Is there anything that you would like with the coffee? We have some fresh baking. It's made in, Bellissimo Bakers, the number one bakers in South Vancouver Island, and they make some incredible pastries. So you have to teach your people to be salespeople, and that's upselling. And branding. Super important. Your brand. You can't just be a coffee shop. You have to be something where people will recognize your name, recognize your logo, recognize who you are, and say to friends, I'll meet you at so-and-so's, because it has to become a recognized name, brand, image, logo, and that's all part and parcel of it. And that's part of what Lex Dunn will be talking to you about in terms of marketing and branding. Then you have to look at the menu. So you go around and you steal everybody's menu. You can either get it online or go in and walk away with their written menu and just see what they're offering. You know, is it coffee, dessert, brunch? And you see there's no dinner menu here. It's strictly for the business crowd, you know, and they're offering different juices. They have a juice bar. Somebody had recommended, where is it? Somebody had recommended wheatgrass. That was very popular. I don't know if it is anymore. It's not something that I've ever tried. But if it becomes a trend, you include it, and it has a draw. And you look at their different menus and see what they're offering and how much they're charging, and does it make sense for you to have a little kitchen or buy some of this stuff prepared, or just serve pastries from a local bakery that also has a certain brand or reputation. And then there's the coffee program, and this is really to build loyalty. And that's why a lot of coffee houses have, you know, punch cards, buy 10 coffees, get one free, that kind of thing. And that's part of building customer loyalty, because they'll want to go back and continue to build up their coupons and to be able to get a free coffee. And that's a big deal to some people. But building that brand and that brand loyalty is pretty cool. Now you come to the point of coffee shop supply. So you have different places that specialize in wholesale coffee. So you want to check these guys out, because you want to know where you're going to get your raw materials from. And chances are some of them will be selling equipment as well. And some of them will actually offer something called turnkey, where they will come in and do an entire installation and set it up and do the design and set up for in terms of space and customer flow, etc. And so you want to start contacting coffee shop supply researchers. So not only for coffee, but for equipment, you know. And there's coffee shop equipment research, their sites, and here's a list that you'll need. And this is what I said: coffee shop owners or entrepreneurs like to talk. They like to share, especially the ones that are successful. They want to say to you, well, here's how I did it. And it's an ego thing. It's definitely an entrepreneurial thing. Entrepreneurs like to talk. They really do. If they don't, they either see you as competition, or they're not doing well and they don't really want to spend any time with you. But most entrepreneurs, doesn't matter what business you're in, could be giftware, it could be web design, could be consulting, it could be massage therapy. They will talk to you, you know, and they'll tell you about not necessarily who their customers are, but how the market is and how they do their marketing, and you know, whether they're doing well or whether, you know, you get together with them and it turns out to be a bitching session, but you find out. And then there's all sorts of reports, and these come directly from suppliers. So you see how we're working our way through. We started off deciding on what kind of coffee shop we wanted to set up, whether it was a kiosk, whether it was in the mall, whether it was a franchise, or whether it was an independent, like Union Pacific started off as an independent. And that's just an example. There's a whole bunch of them, obviously. And then you start looking at what it takes, how much money you can make, where your clients are going to come from, what market share you can beg, borrow, or steal from existing businesses out there, how much money you make for every cup of coffee, how much money you make on a standard operation, you know, on a monthly basis, what it costs to run, and what kind of equipment you need, whether it's drink making equipment or food related, or other equipment, which is point of sale, card machines, cash register. And if there's food related, I mean, if it's a space issue, then you may be just bringing in food from an established bakery or supply house and just sell it along with the coffee. It all depends how much space you're willing to rent out and how much of a flyer you're willing to take. So 13 tips to open a successful coffee shop. And here it is. It's for only $1,495. There is the Canadian Barista and Coffee Academy, Vancouver campus. So there you go. For $1,500, you can actually enter or register with the academy. You find out everything about them, what they offer, what kind of advice they offer, and it might be a really good way to go. And for just about every industry, there is some organization out there that can help, can give you guidance, and is very industry specific. So coffee shop training, there's all sorts of training packages. Here's the one that we talked about, the Training Academy, $1,495. That's Vancouver. There's another one, Barista Level 1, Complete Barista Training, also Vancouver. These are all Vancouver campus. So these are all the various types of courses that you can take. And it's something that you would want to take, particularly if you're not experienced in the coffee shop industry or in the barista industry. You'd want to take something where you can get this kind of input from an organization that's training others, that's been there, where you can ask them like a bazillion questions. So training specific industry training is a good way. Or someone said, or simply the local chamber can make connections. That's very true. Local chamber of commerce can help as well. So then there's all these reports. You know, the Complete Coffee Shop Startup Kit, the Successful Coffee House, 20-day action plan, plan and build relevant and profitable business. So some of these are probably not bad. They're not terribly expensive. And they're worth looking into. This one includes 17 expert audio interviews. So you know it's kind of dated. But there's information out there. And the best bet is if you're going to be going to the Barista Training Academy, that's the place where you want to pick up the information because it'll be relevant. Coffee shop startup research, pros and cons of starting a coffee shop. And this is where entrepreneurs share information. And they share information like, this is what you should do, and this is what you shouldn't do. This is what I did wrong, and it cost me an extra $30,000, and it took me an extra 5 months. And so it becomes forum. There's forums out there, and it becomes a bit of a bitching session. But it's a good way to learn, okay? And coffee shop owner feedback. So this is all really good. But keep in mind that most of what you're going to hear are kind of horror stories. Like, I opened a charming coffee shop in the neighborhood, then it destroyed my life. So just remember that most of the feedback sites and the forums are kind of bitching sessions, but you know, it may raise some red flags for you. Then there's how to start a coffee shop, business plans. B-Plans is a really good company because they have business plans specifically for different markets. So this is a coffee shop how-to and something worth exploring. But again, if you're going to be taking a course through an organization like the Vancouver campus of the Barista College, they'll have all this for you. It'll be part of it. How to write a business plan for a coffee shop, financials, also really good. So I'm just showing you what's out there. So we've just spent the last 25 minutes going through every piece of information that you can feed into your funnel, that you can feed in terms of how to arrive at a decision, how to arrive. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to arrive at a yes, no. If it's no, then you move on to the next shiny coin on the road. If it's yes, then you have to start thinking about where are you going to get the money? What are you going to set up? What are the rents going to be, etc. And this would be the start of moving forward. But before you're moving forward, you have to have done all this homework to get to the point where you can say, yes, I'm willing to give it a shot, or no, it's not for me. There's too many things in here, too risky, too much competition, too much money to set up shop. Not a great location. They're all taken. And walk away. So that is from soup to nuts how you get to a yes, no decision on whether you go ahead with a project. Does that make sense? Yes? Clear? Very clear. Yep. Good. Okay. Little happy faces. Very clear. Cool. But that's what it is. Now, I don't care what your business is. Like if you were to come to me and you're looking for some mentoring time, I would lay out this kind of a program for you based on what your business idea is. I would talk to you about where you can get the information, how you secure it, and not only that, but what it means, how you interpret the kind of information that is available for any kind of business opportunity. Okay, cool. So next week's session, we have 2 sessions next week, and it's a continuation of Startup Indigenous Business Must-Have Business Basics. We have a couple of funders coming in. Futurepreneur Canada and Victoria Community Microlending are going to come in and do their presentations, which is great. You can ask them all sorts of questions. You can see what their programs are all about. We have Tina coming in. Tina Sevilla is a successful Indigenous entrepreneur, and she will tell you how she started her children's clothing business. And she was actually one of our star pupils, star participants a couple of years ago. And she's a character. So she will come and talk to us about what she did right, what she did wrong. And there will be a continuation of additional information on how to research a market, what to look for, how to set up your vision, how to set up your goals. And it's really and also what we're going to be covering next week is the business plan. A number of you have asked about a business plan. I think it's time that we got into a business plan. And what we're going to be talking about is not just how to put a business plan together, because that's pretty straightforward. I can tell you it's got an executive summary, it's got products, it's got management, etc. What we're going to do is we're going to deconstruct the business plan and show you, for everybody who is going to be reading your business plan, what they need to see in your plan. Because your plan is very target specific, whether it's for yourself as a building tool, or a government funder and Indigenous funders that you're going to be hearing about over the next week or two, or an investor or a partner. These are all different. Everybody needs to see something a little different. You have to hit the hot buttons with each one of these target readers. So we are going to take a business plan and we are going to tell you how to build one, but also how to deconstruct one, what people need to see. You know, some business plans are very text heavy. Some people, some readers, you need lots of charts and graphics because you're kind of dealing like kids and they don't have a great attention span. So you've got to use lots of color and pictures and stuff. But we will be going into all this when we talk about how to prepare a business plan for the right audience. So next week, the sessions are May 11th and May 12th. In most cases, the webinars are Mondays and Tuesdays, but sometimes we had to move it over to Tuesday, Wednesday, because Monday was a holiday. So next week is the 11th and 12th, and everybody will be getting invitations. Hang on. There's something else I want to talk to you about. No, content. So one of the things I want to talk to you about again is, and I will leave you with this, assuming it works. We would like to know more about you. It's important to me. I want to know, I mean, I know some of you because you've been with me before. And I would like to know what business you're in now or what business you're interested in starting or considering or exploring, so that as we build more information to present to you when we talk about specific Indigenous business ideas or marketing or technology on how to get online and social media, et cetera, we'll have a better idea of the types of businesses that we were dealing with. So please get back to me in a very brief email. I don't need any business plans. I just need 2 or 3 sentences to introduce yourself. And the only reason we're asking is because we have a really large group here, and we're really pleased with the kind of response. Hang on. Bye. Yeah, we're actually thrilled with the kind of response that we've been getting. We're getting additional signups every day. So people are talking to people, and you can tell your friends that they can join in anytime. They just have to get a hold of us at VI Thriving and ask to be registered into the program. But tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your business or what you're interested in, so we can shape some of this information that we get back to you with in terms of the training. And that's about it. I apologize for the little hiccup with the video. I'll have to find out what happened there, but at least we got that taken care of. I hope this information was informative for you, was useful to you. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the how-to. Good sessions. Well, how long should this be? 2 or 3 sentences. In terms of this information getting back to us, 2 or 3 sentences, no more. I don't really need. We're just trying to determine the kind of businesses or the kind of business interests or entrepreneurial interests that we're looking to provide training and mentoring for. And that's something else. We have mentors as we go through this session. Keep in mind that mentors are available to go over some of your interests and to help you and walk you through some of the information, whether it's marketing or technology or just business development. I will be doing some of the mentoring myself, but we have a team of other mentors who are very qualified, and we'll do what we can. And we're trying our best to help create some viable, exciting, entrepreneurial activities for the Indigenous community. And that's why we're here. So thank you all very much. Watch for your invitation for the next session, which is May 11th. And that's about it. Anybody have any other comments? Okay. Thank you all, and go out and get some fresh air, but not too close to anybody else. But it's a beautiful evening to go for a walk. Thank you all. Love you all. See you next week.